Kutaki no Ha, episode 27, Saturday, September 9th, 2006. Welcome to Kutaki no Ha, the podcast dedicated to the Bujinkan martial arts of Masaaki Hatsumi Soke and to the spirit of cooperation and friendship in the Bujinkan community. I'm Shawn, your host. Today we won't be having any extra music or anything because I'm recording this at work and I don't have any access to any kind of special music files that I usually use for intro and closing and stuff like that. But I did want to get this episode out today because today is the 9th day of the 9th month, September 9th, and it's the 18th year of the Heisei era in Japan, and of course 1 and 8 equals 9. And we all know that 9 is a special ninja number, and so I wanted to throw some more 9s at you, like the Ku of Kutaki is 9 waterfalls, Kutaki, and also Ha, Kutaki no Ha, Ha. H is the 8th letter and A is the first letter, and 8 and 1 is 9. And today is also the 9th anniversary of the Hombu Dojo opening, which was in the 9th year of the Heisei era on September 9th, 9 years ago. And it's also episode 27 of the Kutaki no Ha podcast, and of course 2 and 7 is 9 as well. So there you go. That was New World Coming, in case you hadn't guessed, by Delphinium Blue, and you can find other music by Delphinium Blue and other bands at the PodSafe Music Network at music.podshow.com. Back to the show. I want to thank everyone that's voted for September. We have 7 votes so far for September, giving us 128 overall votes, and our monthly rank for September is now 308. So we're back up over 300. I'd like to encourage everyone to vote if they can. You can go to the voting page, which is linked from the Kutaki Noha podblog page at www.kutaki.org/podblog. There's a link from there to the podcastalley.com page where you can vote for this podcast and help us keep up there in the rankings. So thanks for everyone that's voted and left comments on the page. Our sticker campaign is still continuing, although it's been kind of slow. I have received 3 postcards. The most recent one from Dean Hauser from Michigan. And for those people who haven't got their stickers yet, don't worry, I will be sending them out very shortly, just kind of waiting for work to slow down a bit so I can have time to get that taken care of. But they will go out and you will get them. So thanks for your patience on that. And if anyone else would like to send in a podcast sticker, the address that you can send those to is listed on the show notes for one of the earlier episodes. If you go to the podblog page, kutaki.org/podblog, the address to send the postcards to is listed there. One announcement about the kutaki.org forums, the Kutaki no Mura website. The Bujin wiki that we kind of started up a couple months ago is going to be coming down in the very near future due to kind of lack of usage. I had allowed people in the Shiroshikai forum to add information to there, hoping that we could kind of build up a knowledge base of information that was submitted by the different Shiroshi from around the world. But there hasn't been much interest on the part of Shiroshikai members in doing that, and there hasn't been that much information submitted. So we're just going to deactivate that module and take the Bujin wiki off. Maybe in the future, if the interest kind of goes up, we can reactivate that. But for now, it's not really doing anything. It's not going anywhere. No new information has been posted. So we're going to just take it down for now. Once in a while on the podcast, I mention a thread or post that I thought was really interesting. It hasn't really been a regular part of every podcast. I haven't done that on every episode, but I'm thinking about maybe starting an admin's pick kind of short segment where one of the admins on Kutaki can kind of highlight a thread that they thought was good. And I could do that myself and for now, and also talk to the other admins, Jeremy and Jan, to see if they'd be interested in doing that as well. For now, for this episode, one of the posts that I thought was really good in the time since the last episode came out was a thread in the Training Methods forum, and the thread is how does someone test what they know? That thread went along for quite a while. It's actually on the 21st page now, and the post that I'm talking about is on the 21st page of the thread, and it's by Brad V from Canada, who goes by the username Canuck. The post is a little bit long, so I'm not going to read the whole post on here, but if you go to that forum and how does someone test what they know thread and just go to the 21st page, and you can find that post by Canuck. I think it points out a lot of good things, like the fact that it doesn't really matter how tough you are, but what's more important is that you're learning to fight and defend yourself, but also becoming a much better person at the same time. And this is something that Brad talked about through the window of his own personal life experience. So have a look at that if you like. I thought that thread kind of went along with what I was talking about in the last episode of the podcast here, where I said that doing martial arts is not worth the time and money if you're only training to be able to protect yourself on the street. And with that statement, I was kind of hoping to stir up some controversy and debate and discussion. That didn't happen. There weren't even any comments about it on the podblog page, let alone on the Kutaki no Ha forums. So I guess I'm not nearly as controversial as I like to think I was. No discussion really came out of it. I did get 1 p.m. Private message on the Kutaki no Mura site from a listener in England. And I'll just read his comment. He said, listening to what you said about training, the cost, as you have said, is very high. Recently I said that people who can afford to go to Japan to train can do if they can afford it. People like me who wish to go and live on state benefits is lucky to see if they have enough money to go to train, let alone do seminars. I worked it out years ago on a cheap calculator that I would have to be parting with 1,300 pounds per year. That was training once a week and bus fare to and from training. It all adds up. People that can afford to go should go, but some make the idea that they go to Japan 2 to 3 or more times per year. They use this as a status symbol, in my opinion. So when people say, I go X amount per year, good, let them go. I just found that paying too much to live and train is enough for me. One day I will go to Japan and see Soke and the other Japanese Shihans, but for now, money is more important than flying. The figure you said of around 300 pounds plus is about right, minus seminars and travel expenses and hotel bills. But I learned to not only defend myself, but to learn the philosophy, the thinking, and it is better than karate, with a smiley face there. I may have missed some of the context regarding the rant, but the figure quoted sparks me off. I guess those that can do it. Those that can't, just wait till they can. Well, thanks very much for the message. The point about the financial expense is well taken, and that is something that I was talking about. However, the main point that I was trying to make was that not only the financial aspect, but more importantly, that there are more important life applications of what we're doing and what we're training in than just being able to be physically superior to someone else in a physical confrontation, because the risk of actually being in a physical confrontation is very, very low in a real life situation for the average person. As an example, I wanted to take some principles that we do study in the Bujinkan, in Budo Taijutsu, and talk about how they're applied in the dojo and how they can also be applied in life. And so I wanted to take a look now and discuss three different principles. The principles of timing, distance, and balance. And I'd like to give a little example of each of those principles and how that example works in the dojo and how it can work in life as well. So we're going to start off talking about timing. So an example of this in a dojo training situation is that your partner launches a punch at you, and just as you see him start to punch, just as you see that punch developing, you preempt it. So you act faster, you see it coming, and you enter before the person can actually launch the punch. You block the punch or jam it with your body or something, and go on to do a technique from there. So you're using that principle of timing. You're seeing the other person start to materialize an attack, and you act before the attack can actually develop and come at you. So how can we look at this aspect of timing in a life situation? Well, one very regular aspect of timing that some of us find is that your life partner, whether that's a spouse or someone that you're dating or something, perhaps they have a time of the month, for example, where they might get quite moody, and because you have been in a relationship with this person for a while, you can see it coming. You've got kind of used to that pattern, so you can see this moody time kind of developing and preempt it. Whether that's getting yourself out of the house and taking a camping trip, or taking your significant other out to a nice dinner, or buying flowers, or just being extra sensitive at that point, at that time. You know it's going to be there, and you're prepared for it, and you're acting to handle the situation as best you can with regards to timing. That's one life application. Another life application of timing we can look at is something that you might encounter in your office. You have a relationship with your boss, whether that's your supervisor, your manager, the president of your company, or whatever, and of course those people that are in positions above you have certain expectations of you, certain expectations that you will meet deadlines, chronological time deadlines. So again, it's a matter of timing. So a lot of people, they're on a project, they know that this deadline is approaching at a certain point in time, and also they're trying to impress their boss, so they're trying to show that they're doing their best all the time, and they're really trying to show that each and every day and each and every hour they're actually doing their best and putting in their time and doing their best to work on this project to get it done on time. Well, one thing that I've learned is that instead of trying to show your boss all the time that you're doing your best, it often helps to show it only when it can be of most help to your boss. Say, right at the deadline, or right when your boss needs some extra information or a presentation or something because he's under pressure from his superiors, and you can see that coming because you know the timing. Instead of doing your best in front of your boss all the time, where he then develops a falsely or unrealistic high expectation of you, if you are working away in the background and developing things, planning things, because you know that you will be able to use them and there will come a time when you need to use them, then it's much more effective to just suddenly be able to drop that down in front of your boss and say, here it is, it's done, you've got what you need at just the time when you needed it. And that can make a much bigger impression than somebody who just puts their nose to the grindstone, say 12, 14, 16 hours a day at the office every single day, just because they're trying to kind of impress their boss all the time. So it's knowing the timing. When will your work be most appreciated? When will your work not be appreciated by your boss anyway, because say your boss is busy with other stuff or doesn't really need what you have at that point in time. Again, it's a timing issue. Again, we can look at timing in regards to the application of power, and power can mean anything from physical power, which we can see in the dojo, where you don't want to be stiff and powerful and strong all the time, but after you use soft and subtle kind of movements to take your opponent off balance, then you apply power. You apply a punch, you apply an attack of some kind, which involves power. But you're not using power all the time. There's a time to use it, there's a time to not use it. And the same thing goes with other aspects of power, like say ability that we were just talking about with regards to work, the timing in which you use your ability, not using your ability to its maximum all the time, but only at the best time. The same thing with rank. Rank in the Bujinkan or rank in any kind of structure or organization. Some people walk around with their badge or their patch or their symbol of status or whatever kind of tacked onto their chest, and they're walking around showing it off all the time. But often it's more effective if you only make use of your position, power, and authority when it is of the most advantage to yourself and when it is the most likely to be of help to other people as well as yourself too. So it's not a matter of going around walking proud and showing your big rank, all the time, but there's a time when you can use that. There's a time when you can use it to help other people, to help them on their path, help promote them, or use your power or influence to help them in some way. The same thing applies with the power of money. Instead of walking around showing off your money all the time, showing off symbols of your financial success, you can be saving your money in the background and fostering it and making it grow, and then when you have it, you have it when you need it. You have it when you need it to buy what you've been saving up for in the background. You haven't been talking about it all the time, but you've just been keeping it there in the background, and in that way you also prevent yourself from becoming a target for other people, if you kind of know what I'm talking about. So we have the principles of timing in the dojo and in life situations, and when it comes to the application of power, whether that power is physical power we use in the dojo or the power of ability, rank, or money. So that's timing. So now let's go on and talk about distance for a second. One application of distance training in the dojo would be if your partner throws a punch at you and you slip back so that you're just a hair's breadth out of range. You're just outside the range of his punch. That could happen, of course, in the dojo or in a fight or any kind of physical fighting situation. So, life application of distance. There's a person who spends a lot of time in Japan for training, and this person can't speak Japanese very well and is always asking the translators to translate every little thing that he thinks might be of use. And it's interesting to sometimes see it come up on this person's website later, and he's talking about it in a very authoritative way, with no credit to the translator, no kind of context in which what was said is happening, and this person's kind of using the translator to build an impression of himself as knowledgeable and kind of to gain validity for himself and things like this. So one of the translators was feeling kind of used basically by this person, and then started to kind of avoid the person by moving to one side of the room when he would see that this person was going to come over and ask for something to be translated. He started to notice it out of the corner of his eye, and then he would just casually walk to another part of the room, or suddenly start to enter a conversation with another person so that the first person wouldn't be able to kind of approach him and ask for this kind of information from him all the time. So this is one application of distance, that the person's taking distance spatially in the dojo as far as space itself is concerned, or even in a way by just ignoring the person and starting a conversation with someone else. That's another way of taking distance. Hatsumi Sensei demonstrated this kind of distance application one time when he was doing some calligraphy painting in the dojo, as he does occasionally, and one of the Japanese instructors came over and asked Sensei to please paint distance for him. Mai, the Japanese word for distance, mai. So Sensei was asked to paint mai. So Sensei just suddenly turned his back on the person and asked the next person what they wanted him to write. So he just completely turned his back on the person who had asked him the question and turned to the next person and just kept going. So again, very nice demonstration of an application of distance. The person asked for distance, and Hatsumi Sensei gave him just what he asked for. The third principle that we're going to talk about, the third taijutsu principle, is balance. And in the dojo, we often use balance. It's in fact a very critical part of our training, to take the person's balance when you're going to throw them or drop them or even punch them. So it's an essential part of training, and one example that we could think of when we're in the dojo and we're going to throw our partner. So we'll say this technique involves pushing the partner back, and as he begins to resist by pushing forward against you, then you turn and use the motion of his forward resistance to throw him forward instead. So you start by trying to push him back, he resists, and you use the motion of his resistance to throw him forward. So let's look at a life application of this, okay? Let's say you're working and you'd like to take a week off work, but you're expecting some resistance from your boss. So you approach your boss and ask him for 2 weeks off. And of course he resists. What? You want 2 weeks off work? I can't give you 2 weeks off. And then you say, well, okay, how about only 1 week then? And then he thinks about it and says, well, okay, that's a good compromise. You can have 1 week off then. So in refusing your request for 2 weeks, your boss gets the impression that he has actually won the discussion or come out on top, when it was actually only 1 week off that you wanted in the first place. So you have like doubled your request because you know he's going to resist you anyway, and then when he resists by by saying, no, you can't have 2 weeks off, you need a much shorter amount of time off, then you use the motion of his resistance to say, okay, only 1 week instead of 2. That's one aspect where you can use the same principle that was in the throwing technique that we were just talking about. One way that you can use that in, say, an office situation in your life. Let's say, again, in the dojo, you're doing a technique and the opponent goes to grab your hand. And so you can see that he's going to grab your hand and he wants your hand. So you give him what he wants, you let him grab your hand, and then you use the fact that he has grabbed your hand to direct him off balance while you hit him in the face with your other hand. Okay, so you've given him what he wants, and then you use that to take him off balance and then strike. And here's a life application of the same principle. When I was working in Tokyo, had a small computer company in Tokyo, I had received this large monitor from a friend of mine, and it was given to me, and I had that on my desk. It was quite a big monitor, and one of the programmers was very envious of this big monitor because I had this huge monitor and his monitor wasn't nearly as big. So I knew that this employee wanted the monitor. But the employee was working flex time, so he wasn't in the office as much, and so we were actually going to have to increase his working hours. So we were going to have to take him off flex time and increase his weekly working hours. And we were expecting quite a bit of resistance from him in doing that, because we knew that he was going to balk and argue and resist the idea of working more hours. So we were gonna have to sit him down and discuss this situation, but I knew that this was going to be coming up. So the day before that we had the meeting with him, I approached him and said, I realize you've been working pretty hard, and you probably could use a bigger monitor, and I have one on my desk, so why don't we just swap monitors, and I'll use your small one and you can use this big one for your programming work. And oh great, okay, thanks. And so he was really happy because he got what he had wanted all this time, and so this was a really big thing for him, and he was really happy about it. And then the next day we had a meeting with him and hit him with the fact that we were going to be wanting him to work longer work weeks. And so while he initially would have been very resistant to that idea, because he was still on the high of getting what he wanted and having this big monitor to work with, he accepted the idea without much resistance at all. He was very cool about it. So, I mean, you might say, well, you had to give up your big monitor in order to get him to do that. Well, the thing is, the monitor was given to me by somebody else, so it wasn't really something that I had spent any money on myself, or even that I really needed. And the benefit of having the employee work longer hours was of much more value and importance in the long term anyway. So he got what he wanted, the monitor. I got what I wanted, longer working hours out of the employee, by using the concept of balance, which I had learned in the dojo. So we've discussed 3 different aspects of training and given examples of their use in daily life: timing, distance, and balance. And so I hope that these small examples have been a little bit of food for thought, and maybe help you think in a new way about how your training can be useful to you in daily life situations and relationships. That's about it from me for now. Next we're going to be hearing from Rob on his regular training segment. But before we do that, we're going to be listening to some reggae. So here is DJ Koa with One Drop. Again, this is from the PodSafe Music Network at music.podshow.com.
Competition so give thanks for the world from some of the wrong people done. Some of them one good, but most of them wrong. Them are doing work, but the one named Satan and mercy. No have a problem, only solution. Good reggae music, check out the vibration. So we born, so we live, I mean, so that's how we go on. Where me coming from down in the Virgin Islands. Me holding and rocking to the beat, and me love the sound.
Who test you can mess with the sound. Better grab your girl, your pussy, and gather round.
We rolling and bobbing and going like I'm not mad. The man got the sweet day for 19 no long, so me say.
Hold tight, cause you know it come true. Music bubble sweet like a pot of good stew. One God, one world, one love. This shall not it ready, me look to above. This shall not it ready, me now push and shove. This shall not it ready, me right panado. One love, one word, one heart. Get up right now and play for your band. Cause we riding, sliding, Babylon hiding, guiding, shining, always reclining, timing, rhyming, open up your minding. One day we stand up in the line.
Me rolling and rocking to the beat, and me love the sound.
Who test you can mess with the sound. Better grab your girl, your pussy, and gather round.
We rolling and bobbing and going like I'm not mad. How the man got the sweet day for 19 no long, so me say.
Hold tight, cause you know it come true. Say bubble sweet like a pot of good stew. Bubble in item. The man J.E. Wah. The man Dano. Wah. The man Chris. What? What I want? The man Big Ghost, the man Dread Days. The most. We light up the coast. The West Coast, no boast. Wah. Make you live on the West Coast. Niceness. Priceless. Listen. Grab a soul and get around. Sing.
Me rolling and rocking to the beat, and me love the sound.
Who test you can mess with the sound. The west side, we're riding. The west side, the west side.
Me rocking to the beat, and me love the sound. Me rolling and rocking to the beat.
You can mess with the sound. Better grab your girl, your pussy, and gather round. Hold tight, cause you know it come true. Music bubble sweet like a pot of good stew. Say no more test, you can't test the dreadlock. Because me put you in a headlock. And then you get the deadlock. Why? You get the wedlock. Man, it's the dreadlock. You can't test the dreadlock. Because me put you in a headlock. And then you get the deadlock. Why? You get the wedlock. Man, it's the dreadlock. See? Right in.
Hi, my name is Rob Brunner, and welcome to the training segment of the Kutaki no Ha podcast. Today we're going to talk about strength training to improve our Budo Taijutsu, specifically focusing on the upper body. In the last training segment, we focused on the lower body with a couple of exercises that allowed us to work from a squat to a roll and back up again. Stressing the importance of the ability to have a full range of motion in your hips and legs, and also the strength to propel yourself up and down, which, of course, since Budo Taijutsu relies upon the walking and the leg strength, that was critical for us. But the second part of this is about developing strength in our upper body. If we are punching someone or delivering a strike with a weapon, or just grappling with someone, we need to have sufficient strength in our structure, the tendons and ligaments surrounding all our joints, to allow us to deliver force, and more importantly, to receive impact from someone and be able to keep a good kamae. Now, of course, joint mobility is number one importance. We're also going to work on strengthening our joints through the full range of motion. We're going to be developing muscular strength itself, and we're going to be increasing our flexibility level. As I discussed in the last training segment, kind of those 4 segments are important for any type of physical training, but especially related to Budo Taijutsu. In this week's segment, the exercise is going to be called the push-up crossover. I think everyone out there is familiar with a push-up, and the second part, the crossover, is really moving your body through the position of the cross. So everyone should be very familiar with those 2 things. Before you can begin doing the push-up crossovers, you're going to need to make sure you have a minimum level of shoulder flexibility. So I want to discuss just a couple of simple shoulder flexibility exercises. One is the making arm circles. If you stand in Shizen with your arms at your side and begin to swing your arms in circles from front to back and then from back to front, increasing the range of motion gradually. You're going to want to develop as much range of motion as you can in order to perform the push-up crossover correctly. The second exercise is a little bit more difficult. It's going to require you to make small circles behind your back. So essentially, you're going to take your hand, reach up behind your back, and try and slide your hand from the small of your back up as high as you can go. And then push away, make a circle, and begin again. So you're making circles behind your back, running your hand up your back. You, of course, want to go in the opposite direction and run your hand down your back, making circles. Do this with both arms in both directions. This is going to increase your shoulder flexibility greatly if you perform this every day, a couple times a day. And then it will also improve the flexibility of your elbows. This motion is difficult for many, many people to perform. So start small. Remember, go up to the resistance, not through the resistance. Move up to the point of hard tension, not through it. What we want to do is we want to gradually allow our body to accommodate a greater range of motion. So once we've done this exercise and we have developed some level of range of motion in our shoulder joints, and it's going to be different from each person, we can now begin to move on to the push-up crossover. So let's start in a push-up position. We're lying flat on the floor, face down. We have our hands underneath our armpits, and we are going to push ourselves up. Now, the classic push-up position is with our hands located under our shoulders, bearing our weight, and your body in a straight line from the crown of your head to your heels. So you've got a straight line position, which means that your abdominal muscles should be flexed, your stomach slightly tucked in, your butt muscles should be flexed and squeezed. This will help you keep proper alignment throughout your body. So from this push-up position, and let me add here that if you're not capable of doing a full push-up position, it's okay to do it from what's called the ladies push-up, which is using your knees on the floor rather than your feet. So we're in our push-up position. I want you to take your right hand and rotate it up into the air, which means you're going to be balancing yourself on your left hand until you're up into a cross position, facing to your right. So now your body needs to maintain its straightness, its alignment, and your right arm should be up in the air with your left arm holding your balance up. This is great right here. As you can see, this is an Ichimonji no Kamae position. This will develop strength in the Ichimonji no Kamae. This is also the ending position for delivering a punch. So your shoulder joint, your torso, your abdominals, your hips, everything are aligned here, giving you a unity throughout your body, a cohesion to develop strength through your left hand. So now we're in this cross position. Go ahead and bring your right hand down behind you so you're essentially in a reverse push-up. It's going to be difficult at first to keep your body perfectly straight through this. It requires quite a bit of back strength, butt strength, and shoulder flexibility. Work on this gradually. Remember, go up to the point of resistance. Don't hurt yourself. No pain, no gain is not quite right. You want to have effort, but not pain. So now we're in the reverse push-up position. We should be looking up at the ceiling or slightly in front of us. And you're going to now bring your left arm up so that you're in a cross position with your right arm supporting your weight and you're facing to your left. the left of your original starting position. And at first, I want you to hold each of these positions for at least 5 seconds. I want you to develop the static strength of just holding this up. Make sure you're checking yourself. Make sure that you have alignment throughout your body. This is creating the strength to hold good alignment in your kamais. So now that you can do this for 5 seconds, go ahead and lower your left arm down to the floor, and you should be in a push-up position once again. You can lower yourself down to the ground, and we're going to start the process all over again and go back in the direction that we came from. So you're going to push back up to a push-up, raise your left arm up in the air into the left cross, bring it around down and behind you into a reverse push-up, bring your right arm up into the air into the right cross, bring it all the way down to your initial starting position and lower yourself to the ground. Okay, that's 2 repetitions of the push-up cross right there. Just for starters, you want to hold each position of this for 5 seconds. When you can do this easily with, we're going to give ourselves a little system here, a scale of 1 to 10. If the difficulty was a 9 or a 10, you don't want to try and increase the difficulty. If you find that it's about a 5 or a 4 or even less, then you've mastered the difficulty level of this. I also want you to monitor how good your form is on the technique. How straight is your body? How crisply are you keeping your arms straight and moving through the motion? On a scale of 1 to 10, your form should be very high, a 9 or a 10. Your effort should be very, very low, so under a 5. When those 2 things are true, you can move to the next difficulty level. Now let's move on and discuss this next difficulty level. Before, we're primarily holding each position of the push-up crossover. Now, we want to focus on really exploding up through the push-up position of this cross. So we're going to start in our push-up position, and we're going to explosively push ourselves up into the cross. So we're going to look sort of like a little gymnastics move. We're going to push up very hard and catch ourselves in the cross. This requires a little bit more strength, a little bit more confidence on your part. Roll fairly quickly through to reverse push-up position and on around and drop into the starting push-up position. Remember to explosively push yourself up into the cross. After you've mastered this, remember, you want your difficulty level below a 5 and your form at a 9 or a 10. Now we can increase the difficulty even more. We're going to push yourself up with 2 hands, go to a cross, reverse push-up position, on and around, and I want you to lower yourself with 1 arm. Don't bring both arms down and lower yourself. Lower yourself with 1 arm. You're going to push up with 2 arms, but lower yourself with 1 arm. We're working all the muscles of the shoulders and the arms through the negative portion of the movement. Working your muscles to the negative portion of the movement develops quite a bit of tendon strength and helps improve your flexibility level. It also will give you the next step on the ladder to doing this push-up with 1 arm, which of course is what we'll be doing next. Since we developed the strength where we can do 1-arm push-ups lowering ourselves with an effort level of 5 or less and a form of 9 or 10, now we're going to do push-ups going in the up direction with 1 arm. So we push up with 1 arm, roll through our cross to the reverse push-up position, roll on down and lower ourselves with 1 arm, and push back up with that same 1 arm. Back to the starting position. So essentially, the first level of this is to hold each position for 5 seconds to develop the strength in that. And then the second would be just doing the push-ups and moving through it at a consistent, steady pace. Then third, we're going to explosively push ourselves up to the cross position and drop into the lower portion of it. And fourth, we're going to do a 1-arm drop or lower ourselves with 1 arm. And then last, and certainly not least, we're going to push up with 1 arm and lower ourselves with 1 arm. If you attain this level of strength and shoulder flexibility, you'll find that when people have you in joint locks, you have a much greater capacity to be safe from injury to your shoulder or your elbows. You'll also find that you can deliver much more force, strike much harder, while being much more relaxed. Because remember, the greater your ability to generate tension, the less tension is required to do the same job. In other words, if you can easily pick up 100 pounds, it requires you to use very little tension to pick up 10 pounds. If you've got a strain to pick up 10 pounds, you'll always be straining to pick up 10 pounds. So we definitely want to increase our strength so that we can be more relaxed in doing our taijutsu. It almost sounds counterintuitive because we've have the feeling that developing strength means that we're going to be tense doing our taijutsu. But actually the opposite is true. The greater strength you have, the less you have to use when performing a certain movement. So, good luck on this push-up crossover and developing strength in your upper body. Once again, if you have any questions regarding this or any other training segment, feel free to contact me. My email is mindwrench, MINDWRENCH, @gmail.com, or you can private message me at the Kutaki website. I look forward to hearing from you. Contact me with positive notes, any questions you have, or even if you hate the training segments. Anyway, have a great training, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Rob. It's good to have another training segment from you. And this pretty much wraps up the episode. We're going to be closing off the episode with a song from Blood Ruby called Remains of the Day. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask if anyone has a copy of the audio file, the MP3 file for episode 13. I seem to have either lost mine or deleted it or something, so if anybody out there has episode 13 still and they could send it to me, I would be most eternally grateful. Thanks very much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your votes at podcastalley.com. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And here's Remains of the Day by Blood Ruby.
See how the landscape